Hello, Yukon 2, 8209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
Northland Public Library presents Candy Matson, Yukon 2, 8209.
Well, that was a pleasant afternoon, Rembrandt dear.
Pleasant but unprofitable. As many times as I've been to horse races, I never seem to have the gumption to quit when I'm ahead.
Like Damon Runyon once said, horse players die broke.
I'm also reminded of that old song, Horses Don't Bet on People. But the scenery was lovely. I enjoyed it.
Yes, Golden Gate Fields is a beautiful park.
Why are you headed up into Berkeley Hills, Candy?
I wanted to avoid that traffic on the East Shore Highway this time of the afternoon. And two, I just had a thought. I know a cozy little spot to eat over in Lafayette. How would you like to have dinner there instead of town?
Splendid, girl. Sounds delightful.
Help me, please.
What was that?
It came from back there, Candy. Must be from that house. It's the only one around here.
Come back. Help. Serious.
Yes, it is that house. Let's find out what this is all about, Ducky.
Now there's a fine start for a cozy dinner in Lafayette. It could only happen to Candy Matson, San Francisco's well-known private investigator. Whether she's at home in her penthouse on Telegraph Hill or at the races in Albany, it makes no difference. Trouble always seems to pop up its dangerous head. And this was no exception. A quiet afternoon, watching the wrong horses finish in the right places, then driving along a road on top of Berkeley's skyline. And out of the dusk, a man's cry for help. That cry led to a maze of events that would have done justice to any Alfred Hitchcock movie. Let's hear what developed after the man called for help.
I stopped the car, turned around, and drove up in front of this lonely house high above Berkeley, overlooking all of San Francisco Bay. The front door was open, so Rembrandt and I walked right in. There, by an open window, was a man on his knees, draped over the windowsill from where he had called.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
It's a heart attack. Quick, Rembrandt, please help me get him on the couch. Then we'll get his collar open and loosen his tie. There we are.
My wife. Gone for doctor.
Good. How long ago?
Don't know. 10 minutes, maybe. Can't wait. Too late. Here. Take this envelope. Deliver it.
Take it easy. Don't try to talk. Save all the strength you possibly can.
This important. Must talk. Must.
I've got his tie off, Candy.
Yes. Never mind his collar, though. It won't do him any good. Not now.
Candy, you don't mean he's dead?
I'm afraid so. I can't feel any pulse.
This is a fine kettle of smelt. How do we explain this, Dove?
The only way to explain it. Just tell what happened the way it happened.
Who will believe that we were just driving along a lonely road, heard this chap call for help, went to his aid, and then had him expire gracefully half a minute later? It's too pat, Candy.
The truth is always hard to swallow, Rembrandt.
Well, this is cozy. What do we do now?
Leave. Report it to the police and be on our way. There's nothing we can do by hanging around.
We could stay and console the widow when she returns.
No, I hate scenes like that. She'll cry, then I'll cry, and I'll feel miserable for a week. Come on, Ducky, let's go.
You aren't forgetting the envelope, are you?
No, that was the request of a dying man. I'll follow through with it.
Oh!
Rembrandt, what's wrong?
Oh, it startled me. A black cat just ran across the doorstep in front of us.
Don't start anything like that now. A cat's a cat, whether it's green or black or beige. It's only the kind that walk on two legs that make me worry.
Well, start worrying then. Here comes one of the males of the species.
Oh, pardon me.
Oh, certainly. Are you the doctor?
That's right.
I'm afraid you're just a little bit late, doctor. The gentleman in there is dead.
What? Jerome dead? Oh, the fool. I warned him.
I'm not being curious, you understand, but where's the gentleman's wife?
Why, inside, isn't she?
No. Just before he died, he said she'd gone to get you.
She called me on the phone. I assumed it was from the house here.
I just knew something like this would happen. It was the black cat.
Oh, Ducky, come. By the way, doctor, what's the gentleman's name?
Moreland. Jerome Moreland. Wait just a moment, young lady. If you don't know him, what were you doing inside?
That's a good question. Answer the good Dr. Candy.
Well, my friend here and I were driving up the road. Obviously, Mr. Moreland made it to the window, opened it, and called to us as we were passing. I turned about, went in, and the door was open, found him on his knees up against the windowsill. We lifted him onto the couch, tried to make him comfortable, but it was too late. He died in less than 30 seconds.
Come along with me, will you please? First, I want to examine Jerome, and then I'll have to have some information from you for my reports.
We went back inside the house, and the doctor busied himself with whatever doctors busy themselves with when they examine a corpse. Rembrandt and I stood in the entrance hall and watched while we had a smoke. When the doc had finished, he fired a volley of questions at us. Where we lived, how long, occupations, etc., and etc. Then he excused us. It felt funny being on the opposite end of an inquisition, but the doctor was nice enough about it, and it had to be done. We gave up the idea of dinner in Lafayette, drove back across the Bay Bridge, and ate in a place in Chinatown. And all the time, I had one tiny, gnawing thought at the back of my head. What had happened to Moreland's wife? When one's husband is dying, you don't stop off for a pound of hamburger and call the doctor from the butcher shop. After dinner, Rembrandt, who had been silent, spoke up.
Dove, I can't place my finger on the exact cause, but I have a slight touch of the vapors.
Oh, Ducky, I'm sorry.
It was either the sight of that poor man dying on the couch or the tomato chow yuck. In either case, I'd like to get home, attack the aspirin bottle, and retire to my downy. Would you be a love and drive me to my domicile?
Certainly, dear. I've got a little errand I want to run anyway.
Oh, girl, are you going to entangle yourself in this Berkeley thing?
You know me and my hunches. Something smells about this deal, Rembrandt. I don't like it. In the first place, I'm not too sure about that doctor. The more I think about it, the more it strikes me that he gave the late Jerome Moreland a very amateurish going over.
I noticed that too.
That was a family home, Ducky. It showed great, huge gobs of loving care. If Moreland's wife was that kind of a homemaker, she wouldn't just run out of the house and call the doctor and forget to come back.
I admit, it does sound suspicious. It's that cat, believe me.
You do have a touch of the vapors. Come, lamb, I'll take you home. You're becoming delirious. I drove Rembrandt to his place on California Street, then over to the Hall of Justice. It was just possible that my number one boy, Inspector Ray Mallard of San Francisco Homicide, might still be on the job homiciding.
Well, Cupcake, what brings you around to these dank dungeons?
Not love, not at this late hour.
If that isn't just like a suspicious flatfoot. You know, social calls are usually made a little bit earlier in the day.
Okay, you've got me. I'm here on business.
You see, if you just admitted it in the first place, we would have saved 5 lines of dialogue. Now, what's the pitch?
I just met a doctor.
Ooh, how thrilling. It doesn't happen to just anyone.
Said doctor affected me like an aphid. It has something to do with a gent who died under my very nose, Mallard dear.
That's occupational with you. Now, suppose we start from the beginning, then I can sort of sort the facts.
Do you know a man by the name of Jerome Moreland?
Jerome Moreland? Are you kidding? I mean, he's merely one of the world's outstanding scientists.
Shake hands then with the hand that unloosened his tie. He up and died this afternoon.
What? Candy, this is terrible.
Mallard dear, I've never seen you so quite upset.
It's going to upset the entire country. Dr. Moreland was a very vital cog in the United States international security.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
You will when you start reading page 1 in tonight's papers. Come, Candy, you're better than that. Moreland. Moreland. Doesn't it mean anything to you?
Nope. Sorry.
He's the man who played one of the leading roles in developing the A-bomb. He contributed largely to the H-bomb. And then from what I've heard, he was working on something currently that would have outmoded them both.
Oh, sure. Now I remember. He made the cover of Time about a month ago, didn't he?
Yep, that's the one.
Imagine. And I was there when he died.
How did it happen, Candy?
Rembrandt and I were driving up this road in Berkeley. We heard this fellow call for help from his house. We went back and there he was. Heart attack, I'm sure.
Oh, what a shame. Moreland meant an awful lot to the security of this country. He was one of the colossal brains of the world. Now, of course, you're going to be called for the inquest, Candy.
Oh, sure. That I know. After all the data the doctor put down, I'm going to be the star.
Yeah, who was the doctor?
What?
His name? What was the doctor's name?
Mallard. And this you won't believe. I forgot to ask.
And you make a living as a private eye? Oh boy, Candy, just give it up, okay?
Marry me, and I will.
Yeah, let's not change the subject.
Oh, one of these days, one of my hints is going to seep through that sponge-like head of yours. In the meantime, thanks for the information on Jerome Moreland.
What, are you leaving, Cupcake?
Uh-huh. I've gone as far as I can here. That supersonic barrier of yours, Mallard, is a little hard to crack. As I left the Hall of Justice, the fog was oozing in through the Golden Gate. The lights of the city shot up. Oh. And in turn, we were sent back from the fog bank, giving the town a fluorescent look. I bought a paper, and sure enough, there were the details on the death of Dr. Jerome Moreland. He was everything Mallard said he was, a world-renowned figure. And of course, my name was mentioned prominently as having been there at the time of his death. I went home and hit the sack and had a fistful of dreams for myself. When the bell woke me, it was 9 o'clock the following morning. Hello? Hello, Yukon 2, 8209.
Miss Kennedy Matson?
That's right.
Sorry to wake you. This is the coroner's office in Berkeley.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
You'll have to appear at the inquest of Dr. Jerome Moreland this afternoon at 1 o'clock, this office.
Okay, I'll be there. Thanks. That definitely was the end of my sleep, so I got up, showered, pressed, and started applying the lipstick. And that's when I remembered. Looking for the lipstick in my purse, there was the letter the good Dr. Moreland had entrusted to me. I'd actually forgotten all about it. I looked at the envelope. It was addressed to Hans Mittelstadt, Snug Harbor Hotel, Embarcadero, San Francisco. I had an appointment to have my hair done, so Mr. Middlestat would have to wait. I dropped down to my girl Veda. I sat, she worked, and several pin curls later, I picked up Rembrandt and drove over to the coroner's office in Berkeley. It was the usual routine. Questions, answers. I testified, then Rembrandt, and then the doctor we had bumped into the day before. Still no Mrs. Moreland. That, to me, was the major issue in the whole deal. There was only one opening. That was Hans Middlestat at the Snug Harbor Hotel on the waterfront in San Francisco. That's where I went.
I don't believe we have anyone registered here under that name. Of course, I've just returned from vacation.
Oh, well, would you take a look in your book?
Yes, of course. I'm terribly sorry. There doesn't seem to be any Middlestat listed.
One moment, Buster. What's that right there?
Oh, I must have overlooked that. That is Middlestat, isn't it?
Now, come on. What's the room number?
Look, miss, why don't you beat it? You're just leading with your chin.
It's my chin, and I'll lead with it if I want to.
Are you acquainted with Herr Middlestat?
Acquainted with him? Of course. Not only that, I have a very important letter for him.
Well, why didn't you say so? Room 332 to the left after you get out of the elevator.
The clerk lifted an eyebrow toward the north, indicating where the elevator was. A few steps around a dingy corridor, and I was face to face with room 332. I knocked. I cooled my heels for about 10 seconds and knocked again. Still no answer. So I tried the door. It squeaked open. The blinds were down, and I was in almost a dusky darkness. I tumbled around for the light switch, found it on the wall next to the door, and clicked it on. What I saw wasn't pretty. The body of what had been an attractive woman in her early 40s, sprawled out on the floor on the other side of the bed. It took only one look to tell me that she was dead. A set of finger marks around her neck told me how it was done. And another look at her neck told me who it was. A locket with the name inscribed in back. Ruth Moreland. I'm glad I got that far because that's when the lights went out. Ah! I floated through space for an eon or two. Then vaguely, something came into audible focus. A voice. A familiar voice. Yes, it was Mallard. At first, it sounded as though he were coming from a deep well. Then his voice changed.
Come on, Daddy. Step out of it. You've been on this long enough. So you got a lump on your head. I got work to do.
Little by little, his voice came into normal shape.
Candy, be reasonable. Untwirl your eyes and talk to me.
The lights came back on. Mallard stopped spinning around, and I saw where I was. A cot in an emergency hospital.
That's the girl.
Hi, Mallard. What happened?
Well, supposing you tell me.
I would if I could, but I can't. I know I got smacked, though.
That's for sure. You could use that knob on your head as a bookend.
How did I get here?
Well, it seems whoever tapped you on the noggin didn't want it to take permanently. They gave you the treatment lightly, just enough to put you in a blackout. Then went through your purse like a tornado through Kansas. The room clerk at a joint called the Snug Harbor phones the police to come and pick up one limp tomato named Candy Matson and one very dead tomato by the name of Ruth Moreland. Did you have anything to do with Mrs. Moreland's ugly finish, Candy?
You know me better than that, Mallard.
Well, answer me this then. How could that hotel clerk have given you the wallop?
He might have, but I don't think so.
Oh, I was just wondering. He had shifty eyes. So somebody goes through your purse. Candy, look at me. Best you can. It's a girl. Okay. Now, do you have information that someone could be after?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's not in your purse.
Mallard, have you been going through my purse too?
Oh, don't get excited. It was only in the line of duty.
Don't you realize that a woman's purse is her private domain?
Not when the owner of said purse is laid out unconscious on the hotel room floor. Now, answer my question. Do you have any information that someone could be after?
I already did. I'll repeat the answer. Uh-huh.
Like I said before, it's not in your purse. Where is it?
I have it on me.
Oh.
Much safer than a purse.
Well, what's the information?
I don't know.
Who killed Ruth Moreland?
I don't know.
Candy, sometimes our friendship makes this job awfully tough. Okay, so we don't know nothing. The chief is terribly unhappy about this whole thing. Listen, take my advice. Don't go on any long trips.
I wobbled to my feet, and Mallard took me back down to the waterfront to get my car. Then he patted me on the hand, and I went home. Now I was more than just curious. So throwing etiquette out the window, I reached down inside where I was keeping the letter and opened the envelope. Addressed to Hans Mittelstadt, it read, "Too many after Formula 12K have decided on this method. In case my heart goes bad, you will receive this. Look for the collar on Jake. Keep up the good work. Jerry." Look for a collar on Jake. Jake who? Whom? What sort of a collar? In spite of the Gene Krupa symphony going on in my head, I wanted to hear more. The only chance of getting somewhere was to revisit the late Dr. Jerome Moreland's house in Berkeley. I eased back over the Bay Bridge, held out my hand with 2 bits at the toll gate, held my breath as I passed the clam flats, and whipped up into the hills. There it was, the house where Rembrandt and I had heard the late scientist calling. Naturally, it was locked, but I knew a way to get in. I probed about, expecting nothing, and I found just that, nothing. I tried the back door. It led out onto a terraced patio. I came up short. There, under a tree, was a small boy sitting with a cat on his lap. The same cat, I imagine, that had frightened Rembrandt. Well, hello there, Sonny.
Hello,
What's your name?
Tommy. What's yours, lady?
Candy.
That's a pretty name.
Yes, it is very pretty. Oh, I hope I didn't startle you.
Well, yes, you did, frankly.
My apologies. I was looking for my son. He must have climbed over the fence. I didn't expect to find him here, now that both Dr. and Mrs. Moreland have passed away. Tommy, where have you been?
Right here, playing with the cat.
Yes, of course. Here, let me have the cat. That's a good lad. You come right home now. Mommy says dinner is almost ready. Again, I'm sorry, miss. I hope I didn't frighten you. Come right home, Tommy.
That's a pretty cat, Tommy. How long have you had him?
Oh, he's not mine. He lives with Mr. Moreland.
Oh, I see. Well, don't you think you'd better go along with your daddy?
Well, that's not my daddy.
What? Who is he, Tommy?
Well, I don't know. I've never seen him before.
What do you know about that? Listen to me. Tommy, what's the cat's name?
Jake.
Thanks, Tommy. I'll see you later. Well, you've got 1 gross of popsicles coming from me. Sometimes I'm a dope. I should have sniffed something when the guy didn't question my presence in the Moreland yard. Now he had a head start on me. He had disappeared around the corner of the house, and I ran over there. Nothing but fence. Only one way out, and that was over. I wasn't too familiar with fence climbing tactics, but I could learn, and did, in a hurry. I shimmied over to the other side, just in time to catch a glimpse of my man, with the cat clutched firmly under his arm. He was running down the back lot. There was a little stream running through the property, dividing the homes on one side of the block from those on the far side. I saw the plan he had in mind. He was going to cut across the small wooden footbridge, duck up through one of the yards on the other side, out in front where he obviously had a car waiting for him. I saw I'd never be able to head him off on foot, so I ran back the way I came in, found my car, and whipped around to the other street. Empty. It was a one-way street, so I followed, taking what I thought would be the same course as my quarry. I must have gone about 15 blocks when all of a sudden I was confronted by 1, a crowd, and 2, a couple of very messy-looking cars embracing each other head on. What's the commotion, officer?
Take a look. I shouldn't have to explain that.
Quite a tangle. Anyone hurt?
Yeah, the lady in the sedan is pretty badly banged up. The guy in the coupe, well, he's dead.
The guy in the... That's him.
What, do you know him?
No. Was there any sign of a cat? A black cat with white paws?
Have you been drinking, lady?
No, officer. That man had a cat with him.
I haven't seen any cats, and I was only a block away when I heard the crash.
Then Jake's bound to be in the vicinity. Excuse me, officer. I've got to see a cat about a man. I got out of the car, left the officer with his mouth open and his arches flat. Now, if I was a cat, where would I go? Someplace away from the confusion of people and wrecked automobiles. That's where I looked, and sure enough, I found Jake in 5 minutes. I picked him up, got back in my car, and drove over to the Hall of Justice in San Francisco. I didn't have to worry about my friend in the coupe. I knew where we could find him if we needed him, on a slab in the Berkeley morgue. I found Mallard sitting at his desk, going over some papers. I walked in and plopped Jake the cat right in front of him.
What the? Oh, God! Get that thing out of here, Candy!
What's the matter, Mallard, dear? Is the great bold Flatfoot scared of cats?
It doesn't look dignified. Get it out of here.
I have a hunch Jake is a very valuable cat. He belonged to the late Dr. Jerome Moreland.
What are you up to, Candy?
See that collar around Jake's neck? It has a little container on it. Pry it open, Mallard. I think we'll find something.
It's a solid little thing. Here, wait a minute. There we are.
Wait a minute. Come here, Jake. On the floor. That's it. Empty the tube, Mallard.
Well, what do you know about that? Microfilm.
And 5 will get you 10 that they contain the formula for Dr. Moreland's latest development.
Okay, Cupcake. Start unraveling the mystery.
Well, this is going to sound incredible, but it's true, so help me. Just before Dr. Moreland died on the couch, he gave me an envelope asking me to deliver it to the name on the outside, Hans Mittelstadt, Snug Harbor Hotel, Embarcadero, San Francisco waterfront. That's where I got smacked over the head by Hans Mittelstadt himself. He had read the accounts in the papers stating that I was present at Moreland's demise. He figured the good doctor had given me information to pass on, whacked me on the beanie, and went through my purse.
Yeah, I'd like to have a talk with that guy.
It's too late, Mallard. He's busy atoning for his sins. He was killed this afternoon in an auto crash in Berkeley.
Oh, that saves me a spot of work. I don't like guys who go around slugging my favorite private eye.
When I got home, I decided to look at the message inside the envelope. I thought that if it was worth getting my skull cracked, I was entitled to snitch a look. The meat of the thing said that Middlestat was to look for the collar on Jake. That left me nowhere, Mallard, until I got to thinking about what Rembrandt had said earlier. It was the cat. I had kidded Rembrandt about that. And I did some more thinking. It was just a hunch, but it worked. A little boy told me the cat's name was Jake. The cat carried vital information in that thing on his collar. Just how vital remains to be seen when you have your boys enlarge that microfilm.
You were right. It is incredible, Candy. But how about Mrs. Moreland? How does she figure into the deal?
The way I get it is this. Moreland and Middlestat had worked together. Just recently, Moreland had finished his formula. He had been working night and day. As a matter of fact, that's what brought on his fatal heart attack. In his type of work, he trusted no one except Hans Middlestat. A bad trust, as Middlestat was a foreign agent, and he was here for the express purpose of getting the facts and figures away from Middlestat, or from Moreland. He became impatient, bumped into Mrs. Moreland on her way to call the doctor, forced her to go to his hotel, where he tried to make her tell him where the doctor kept his records. She wouldn't talk. So in a wild burst of frenzy, he choked her to death. That's when I walked in, shortly after.
Well, these spy boys are tough cookies.
Yes, but not especially smart. If he'd been patient, I'd have given him that information willingly, according to Dr. Moreland's dying request. Isn't that irony for you?
No, that's right. That poor dope was bilked by his own chicanery.
As it was, he almost got away with it. If it hadn't been for that auto wreck, he'd have been off and running, back to his comrades. And I use that word deliberately.
Well, Candy, I gotta admit it. You used your head on this one.
Oh, I most certainly did. I've still got the lump. Come on, Mallard. Knock off for a little while. You can buy me a Gibson.
A Gibson? Sure, you got one coming.
And while we're at it, one big bowl of milk for Jake. Straight.
Thank you all for joining us. We have been the Northland Public Library Radio Hour featuring Miss Raeann. I'm Katie, Nick, our wonderful volunteer, Madonna, Ellen, and of course, Miss Susan on Foley work, I suppose.
And everything.
And everything, yeah.